Okay, now that we know the policies behind how to send cookies, how to attach relevant ones, and also how to set cookies, which cookies you accept from the server, we can now see an application of cookies called session authentication. And this will answer one of our questions from earlier. So first, we should define what a session is. It's a sequence of requests and responses that are all associated with the same user. So for example, if I log into Gmail, I might make a lot of requests and responses. I might want to read a lot of emails that I've received. I might want to send a lot of emails. And each of those emails that I send and receive might be a separate request. And somehow, I'm able to make all those requests while staying logged in. So we say that all of those requests and responses are associated with a session. It's a long-term time when I am logged in. And somehow, the server needs to know that all of these requests are associated with the current session, the current time when I am logged in. And eventually, I will end the session either by logging out, or I have been logged in for so long that the session expires and I have to log in again. So that's what a session is. Now the question is, how does Gmail know that all of the requests and responses during your session, when you're checking your email, are all associated with you? Remember that each request and response is independent, so the naive solution wouldn't be able to associate every request and response with you. So the most naive solution, the dumbest thing we could do, is to have the user type the username and the password before every single request. And in fact, you could build a web server like this, where every request has to have a username and a password attached. So before sending an email, I type my username, I type my password, then I can send the email. Or if I want to read an email, I type my username and my password, and then I load the email. Now this works, but it's very inconvenient. Nobody wants to send their password every single time and type it in when they make a request. So instead, I want the browser to automatically say that I am currently logged in so that the user doesn't have to always type the username and the password. And how do you make this happen? We're going to use cookies to achieve session authentication. So cookies are the method that we're going to use to make this work, and session authentication is the goal. It's the behavior that we want. But do remember that cookies can be used for other purposes too, not just session authentication. So for example, the dark mode cookie, that's another application of cookies. So here's my best analogy for how session authentication works. So if anyone's ever been to a concert recently, well, maybe when you go to the concert, you have to present your ticket, you present your ID, and then they let you into the concert venue. And maybe you remember you left something in the car, so you have to leave the concert venue and you have to come back. So one way that the concert venue can let you leave and come back is maybe what they'll do is when you log in, when you first enter the venue, you present your ticket and your ID, they check that it's valid, and then they give you a wristband, and they put the wristband on you. And later, if you want to leave, that's no problem. And if you come back, all you have to do is show the wristband again, and you no longer have to present your ticket and your ID a second time. And when you leave, you can take the wristband off because the concert is over. So this is how you might implement authentication at a concert. Everyone gets checked once, and in the future, if they want to enter and exit, they can just use their wristband to prove who they are. So that's kind of the idea. Session authentication works basically the same. Maybe the only difference is that everyone's wristbands are different because you want to tell who each individual person is, but that's kind of the idea. So now we can take that exact same idea and implement it for sessions on the web. So instead of a wristband, the virtual equivalent of a wristband is something called the session token. It's a secret value, a long string of ones and zeros, and it associates the requests with a specific user. So think of the token like the wristband that we gave to someone. So when you first visit a website like Gmail, you're going to type in your username and type in your password. You have to do that the first time. And if they're correct, you send an HTTP request with the correct username and password for you, then what Gmail will do is they will generate a brand new session token on the server side, send it back to you as a cookie and say, here is a new cookie that you can store. Think of this like your wristband, so hold on to it, and it will allow you to re-enter in the future without typing in your password again. And now your browser has a copy of that token in its cookie jar. Now the server also has to remember the session token, and in particular, it has to remember that that session token that it's just generated, that long sequence of ones and zeros, corresponds to you. So if it ever sees this particular token, a very specific wristband, it associates that wristband with you, the currently logged in user. And if many people are logged in, there might be many session tokens associated with each logged in user, and the server keeps track of all of them. So that's how you log in. Now later, if you want to check your email and you don't want to have to log in a second time, then all that your browser has to do is automatically attach the session token in the request. So remember we said that the browser automatically takes relevant cookies and sends them with the request. So if the session token's in a cookie, you take out that cookie and you send it along with your request. And the server receives your request, which says, I want to read an email, or I want to send an email. And there's a session token attached. So it checks the session token, concludes that the session token is associated with you. And now that it knows that you're logged in, it can give you the email that you requested without having to ask you for a username and password again. So this is the computer equivalent of wristbands at a concert. They're called session tokens. Now, this is kind of a subtle difference, but it's a useful one to think about. Session tokens and cookies are not exactly the same thing. So the session token is the goal you want to achieve. It's the behavior you want, where users don't have to log in again. And cookies are just one way to achieve the session token behavior. You could also build session tokens using other features, but that's not what most people do. And likewise, cookies can be used to save different state like dark mode. Session tokens are just one application. So while cookies are a very common implementation of session tokens, they're not the only one, and cookies can also be used for other things. So if you want the cookie-specific version of session tokens, you'll notice that this version, we said nothing about cookies. It's very general purpose. You could use anything to remember the session token and attach it. But the most common way to actually remember session tokens is to use cookies. So you sign in with your username and password. If it's correct, you get the session token as a cookie. And then you store that cookie in your jar. And in the future, if you make requests, you attach that same cookie in the request. The server checks the session token in the cookie, knows it's from you, and you don't have to enter the username and password again. And eventually, when you're done, either you log out or the session itself times out, then they both delete the session token, and your session is expired. You would have to log in again if you want to use this website in the future. So that's how you would do session tokens with cookies. OK, this is kind of a repeat of what we just said, but one thing I guess I haven't explicitly called out is that the cookie is usually some random unique value as the session token. So the name might be session ID, and the token might be this really long hexadecimal string. That's totally random. And remember, again, that the server has to keep a name-value pair. So it has to remember this particular session token that starts with 09 and ends in 9F is corresponding to this particular user. So that when you send this cookie, the server can do a lookup and realize that it's from you.